Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode in our spline mesh tutorial series. In the last couple of episodes we showed you how to use splines for various means, and what I'm going to do now is start showing you how to use splines to create more organic shapes such as caves and how to make a cave system. So this is going to be a sort of a mini series broken up into multiple episodes because this is quite a complex thing to do. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off with this episode looking at linear caves. So here I've got a cave piece here, and to give you a demonstration of how this works, I click on here and I can stretch it out and it'll add more cave pieces to my mesh here. Like so. And this is totally interactable. So the player, if it's a bit bigger, the player can actually run into it, like so. Okay, so we've got a cave. This is what we call a linear cave, and we're going to use this in this episode, and later on in future episodes we'll go into how to do like branching caves and cave rooms and other things like that. So let's start with the basics of getting this cave spline working. So ultimately the way this works is very similar to how we've done the pipe stuff, but a few things matter a lot more here, such as the model you're going to use, and also we don't want it to stretch or do anything like that. So that bit's going to be a bit more different as well this time around. So let's first of all show you how to make the model for a cave piece and what you need to have it do. So for a cave piece to work, you need to have perfect seams between the front and the end of each section. What I mean is the vertices on one end need to match the same location as the one on the other end. So I'm going to show you how you can do that in Maya with a very crude example. Obviously you can spend a lot more time on it. So I'll start off with a basic cylinder, and let's just scale this up and rotate it like so. And let's actually knock it down a bit here. Okay, so what I tend to do is I will first of all delete my faces here. Let's put on drag. Nope. Because you don't want the caps on there, so you delete those. So you're just left with this tube here, and then what I do is, if I just move that up, is I flip the normal. So go to mesh display and reverse, and that will now flip. And I personally prefer to have it back face culling, so I'll turn the back face culling on, and next up I start deforming it. So for this to work I need to add in a load of edge loops into the shape, so I'm just going to add some edge loops in. That'll do, and I'm just going to turn a soft select and vertex. A bit too much soft select there. There we go. So using the soft select, I'm just going to move it only in the Z and Y axis in this case. I'm not moving it in the horizontal, just up and down and left and right. So I'm just going to create an entrance way here. Now I only want to focus on just on one side at the moment, because we're going to delete the other half in a moment to get the matching to work. So ultimately just do that, and yeah, let's put marquee back on, turn soft select on, off, flatten it out a little bit, and yeah, that'll do. Okay, so the main thing is you want to get this entrance or exit hole in the position you want it to be. Once you've got that, we're going to delete half of this shape, very crudely. Again, you can spend a lot more time on this, making it exactly how you want it, and more importantly, I'm going to change my handle there, my pivot, to be on the end, like so. So what I can do here is I can now duplicate it on the other side. So I'm going to go Edit, Duplicate Special, and I want it to be mirrored in the y-axis. So I think no, not the y-axis, the x-axis. So it's here, -1, and that should do it. You want an instance? Click Apply. Nope, that's the wrong one. Always get it wrong first time. -1. There we go. So you get it duplicated on the other side, like so. So both this side and this side are exactly the same. So the next trick is then to combine these two meshes. So I'm going to go Mesh Combine, and what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to select all these edges and soften them, except for these ones here. I'm going to harden these ones. One thing of note is that because the meshes are two meshes, like so you can see a crease there, the reason why it's there is because there's actually multiple vertices in the same location there. So what I do is I select all the vertices and just merge them in. Okay, so that should hopefully make that able to soften that edge there. Okay, so there's a cave piece. We've got the ends the same, okay, but if you want to tweak the bit in the middle, you can do. I'll show you how to quickly do that. Go to vertex mode and select the vertices on the ends. Like so, and like so. And over here you'll see on the channel box, CVs, click to show. You can click on the whole table here, and then right click to select them all, and then right click, and then you'll see lock selected. And now that will lock those vertices in place so we can't move them. So here, when I want to move this one, you can see it doesn't affect that entrance at all. I can't move it. So you can tweak this caved piece however you like. So that's how you make the cave pieces, and you can have as many of these as you like, but for now we just need one for this to work. Okay, so once you've got that the way you like it, you can then unwrap it, texture it, and then import it into Unreal. So I've already done that, so let me just load up my one. So here's my cave section I've made. I've also done the material work for it already. So open it up, you can see here's my cave with my material, doing the floor and the walls. And as you can, it may be hard to see, but the entrance and the exit do share the same vertices. Okay, so I'm going to close this, and now we're going to build our spline actor. So I'm going to go into my blueprint class here, a new actor, and call it cave. So as I said, we're going to do just a linear cave for now, and we'll get into the more complicated stuff in the next episodes. So the first thing we need to add to our cave actor is a spline. So add a spline, not a spline mesh, a spline. And if you don't know how a spline works, please check out previous videos where I go into it a bit more detail. But essentially it allows us to make bendy stuff. It's a line that we can do stuff with. So check out the other videos for much more detailed explanation, and it's a good idea to start with the first episode of Splines so you can work your way up to this more advanced stuff. So here's my spline here, and there's the two anchors that comes with it. And then we're going to go into our construction script. So our construction script is what's going to allow us to procedurally make our own caves inside the editor. So here I want to first of all get the length of my cave sections. Okay, so here I'm going to get actor scale 3D. So getting the actor scale 3D, we can then split this to get the X, Y, Z values. Now the reason why this is important is because I want to make sure I get the correct length. So if I've scaled the actor inside the editor, this will return that scale. So by default it would be just 1. I then want to multiply this by a value, by another float, and the value I want to multiply by is going to be the width of the length of my cave section. So if I open this up, you can see here my one is 300 wide. So from end to end it's 300. So on here I'm going to type in the word number 300. And I'm going to store that as a variable. So I'm going to drag this out and promote to a local variable. And this local variable is going to be called section length. So the very first thing is we're going to get the section length of each cave piece. Once we've got that, we're then going to use the spline to do a loop to start building that spline up. So what we need to do is drag our spline out, and this guy is then going to go and get the length of the spline. And the reason why I want to do that is because we now know how many what section length we have. We can now divide the spline length by that section length, and that will give us how many sections we need to do in the loop. So here's our spline length. I'm then going to divide that by my section length. So drag the section length out, drop it in. So if our spline length is 600, this will spit out 2. Okay, meaning I need to build 2 sections. Now this is a float. I want to get to a int because I don't want to. You can't build half of a mesh. You can only build a full mesh. So from here, I'm going to round this. Not round it. Floor it to the floor it down to a value. Okay. So if our section length, spline length, sorry, is say 400. 400 divided by section length is 300 plus some remainder. This will float it down and get rid of the remainder. So we just got just get the 1. Okay, so it means I need to build just 1, and that's going to be the value of our for each loop. So I'm going to type in a for each, not for each loop, a for loop. No, silly thing. For loop. There you go. For loop. We now got a return value index. Okay, so if I drag this into last index, what will happen is this is not going to be coming true because my spline length, if say it's 400, section length is 300, this will return 1, meaning that this loop would do twice because it would do once for 0 and another one for 1, which I don't want. Instead, what I want to do is take 1 away from this floor and then plug it into last index. So now this will correctly only do 1 loop if this is below 600. So now this is going to start getting messy very, very quickly, especially in the future episodes. So what we're going to do is start actually using functions. So this bit here that we just did in the for loop, I'm going to split this off into a function. So I'm going to add new function, and we're going to go build cave. Okay, and we're going to take this code here. You can copy it by right clicking, go copy, and we can then paste that into our build cave function. Alternatively, you could just select this and then right click and collapse the function. That also does this. The downside to this means that we don't have access to our section length. That's because that is a local variable, local only to the construction script. So instead of having it in here, we need to bring it up to a variable here instead. So where we've got the set section length here, we're going to delete that and promote that to a natural variable, a full variable. And section length. Oh, I need to delete the other one first. Yes. Section length. I can now delete this and go to my build cave, and section length there is now lit up and shows that it would work. So this build cave function is going to build the cave based on the length of the spline. So on the for loop, we're going to create a spline mesh and attach it to our spline. So from here, we're going to go add spline mesh component, and from here we can set the static mesh it's going to be using. So here I'm going to use cave section 1. Yep, there you go. Cave section. So I'll add that spline mesh. Now spline mesh is different from other meshes because it allows you to warp it based on a spline. So on here we're going then to set forward axis, and the forward axis we're going to use is X, I believe. So if I were to say open up my cave section, that is facing the X-axis. So if I look down on it, I can see X is this way, which is the same direction as that. So my forward axis is going to be X. I'm then going to come out of there and go set start and end. And here I can set the start position and start tangent, end position and end tangent. So from my for loop here, I can drag the index out and the spline mesh out to access parts of the spline to determine the location and the tangent of each spline mesh. So from also we forgot something quite critical. The set start end needs a spline mesh target, which comes from our spline mesh component. So drag the return value over to that target there. So on this index here, we're going to come down and drag the spline component out onto our blueprint, and then from here we're going to get location at distance along spline. Now the distance we want to travel is going to be the section length times by the index. Now the index here, it could be, first of all, will be 0, which is what we want because it has to be right at the start of the spline. And when it goes to 1, it will be 1, so 1 times 300, move it along 300 pixels, 300 units, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty cool. So my index is going to come down here and multiply this by a float, and the float that goes into there is our section length. And the return value for this goes into our start position. Now we can use this again to get the tangent at a distance along a spline. The distance will be the same, and the return value goes to our start tangent. So the next one is get the end position. So to get to end position, we need to increase the index by 1 to find out what it is. Okay, so go to index, drag this out, add +1, and then we're going to copy all this again and hook it up like so, and we've got the end position and the end tangent. Click compile. Let's test that out. But before we test it out, let's go into our construction script and add that build cave function to our construction script. And we're going to drag the cave blueprint out, and we should be able to click on the section, the spline, and add spline components to it. Now the very first thing you'll notice is that it does this sort of stretching motion, okay, based on how long that spline section gets. The problem goes away when you start adding multiple spline points, but that's obviously not what we want. So to fix that, we're going to go back into our cave and back into our build cave function. Okay, so the reason why it wasn't, it was stretching like so, is because of our tangents. So when we increase a spline, the tangent is this red line here, the handle, and as we increase this spline out, this red line gets longer and longer and longer. That's the tangent. Okay, so we need to tell it to stop stretching the tangent in order to solve our stretching issue here with the textures and the rest of the mesh. Okay, so to do that, we're going to go back into our cave blueprint, and when we've got the tangents for start and end, we need to come out there and clamp it. And we're going to clamp it to a maximum size of the section length. So drag your section length into the max, and then the return value will go up to your end position, end tangent, sorry. There you go. And start, so that was start tangent, and then this one is the clamp section length, and then that goes into the end tangent. Okay. Now that should have fixed the errors we were seeing. You see? Now, straight off the bat, if we play this, we will fall right through our cave, which we don't want. So to make it collidable, go back into our cave, and then from our add spline mesh component, we're going to go to return value here, and we're going to go set collision, and you'll see set collision enabled. Connect that up, and the new type of collision will be collision enabled. Compile, and we should be in business. Yeah, I'm in it. I'm just getting stuck, so let's increase the size of it. I made my mesh too small. But if we increase the size of it, I can run into it, and so forth. I'm stuck on the wall, but there you go. Now because there are no back face on it, and it's cold, it means you can jump through it and get stuck inside. Okay, so be wary of that and how we use it in games. So whilst I'm here, I thought I'd show you how we actually add the cave to, say, a landscape, how to make a cave system for a landscape. So here I have a landscape, and what I'm going to do is quickly increase a hill in it. Sculpt. Increase the size. Just make a little hill, or mountain rather. Okay, so we're going to do a cave for our landscape here. So to do so, we actually need to change a bit of the material on the landscape so for this to work. So click on your landscape and open up its material. The main thing you need to have is have the material be a masked material, and the landscape visibility mask to go into the opacity mask here. Okay, that's super important. That's the only way you can do this. So landscape visibility mask, plug that into opacity mask and change this to a masked blend mode instead of opaque. And what that allows you to do, when you click on your terrain, you can change your sculpt tool to the visibility tool. And if I make the brush a lot smaller, I can actually paint holes in my landscape. And these are holes that the player can actually run through and fall into. So for example, let's just delete these walls. Run over here. See? So you can actually go through those holes there. So the way it works in games, when you're using, at least with the landscape tool, you will drag your cave into here. Just going to rotate it, and I'm going to scale it up now. Click on this and move this out like so. So I've got a brief cave here. Let's just put this another spline point in to get a curve. Okay, so we then have this cave hanging out of this hole. So what you typically do, and you see it in games all the time when they have this hole set up, is they actually dress up the outside of the hole with rocks, debris, mine shaft, decor, whatever, buildings, and we dress it up so we can actually then run through the cave. So you can make it more accurate, so you can make it tighter, but it is difficult. But essentially that's how it works. So we put in some decor around here, and this could be rocks, for example. So if I go and find rock, so these rocks, for example, just using starter content, you dress up and plug the holes that you see in your environment with static meshes. And once you've got that, then you've got your cave that goes into the environment. And that'll basically be it. Okay, and that's essentially how you do caves. So in this episode we covered linear caves. In the next episode we're going to go into some more settings we can do with these cave systems, and eventually get to the point where we can make them branching and open into other rooms. Okay, thanks for watching. If you want to see those next parts right now, head over to Pt.1 and support me there for as little as $1, just like these fantastic people have. And big shout out and thank you to everyone who's been supporting me. And if you like this and want to see something in particular, put it in the comments below, give us a like, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notify bell. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.